So my question is, with such flimsy evidence for Christianity, how can you carry on being a Christian when, you know, Islam clearly states in the Quran that, you know, you only go off of conjecture?
Okay, so let me reply to that. Because what we see is Luca has fully bought into the Dawah script. And that Dawah script is based on ignorance. Whose ignorance? The ignorance that you find in the Quran. Let's just weigh up a simple argument in our minds. We have a first century event about Jesus Christ, and we have the weight. What do we have that talks about the crucifixion of Jesus? We have the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Luke, the Gospel of John, and the Gospel of Mark. We have the writings of Paul. So we have 5 independent testimonies right there. We also have the writings of Clement of Rome, who was a first century bishop, and then we have the writings of multiple church fathers from the early 2nd century, like Ignatius and Irenaeus. So that's 7 right there. We also have the writings of Tatian. We also have the writings of, am I going to get this right? Tertullian, Tatian, the names escape me. And a number of other Christians, I'll get them out in a second. So we have multiple first century witnesses to the crucifixion of Christ. I'll give you in a list in a second. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do we see? We see, ladies and gentlemen, that we have over 10 independent first century sources that talk about the crucifixion of Jesus. And what are we supposed to believe over those 10 independent sources that were written by Jews, Roman pagans, and Christians? We're supposed to believe a 7th century document supposedly written by a 7th century Bedouin, 7 centuries late, in the Arabian Peninsula, in a language that Jesus didn't speak, not being a witness to any of the events, unfamiliar with any of the witnesses, and having no historical continuity to the community that was founded by Jesus Christ. Any historian like Bart Ehrman, who is not a friend of Christianity and he's just sunk Islam, says that we don't go to the Quran to learn anything about Jesus. It is not a credible source. And who are the ones that do conjecture? There's no division amongst Christians that Jesus Christ was crucified. Who has the conjecture? The Muslims have the conjecture. Why?
Who says
because Muslims can't agree on who was actually crucified. Some Muslims say that it was a faithful follower of Jesus that was crucified. Other Muslims say it was an enemy of Jesus Christ that was crucified. Other Muslims say that it was Jesus Christ himself who was crucified. So the Muslims themselves are the ones that have the conjecture, and yet the Quran projects onto Christians its own conjecture. The Quran had an historical error in it, Luca, and that is a fact, and therefore you have yet another good reason to leave Islam. But I understand the promise of a wife and the promise of fame is more important to you, and the promise of sex is more important to you than truth, and you have my pity for that. Any other questions about Christianity?